Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for February 13, 2023, the Corruption Kills edition. And we begin with that story from the Foreign Policy magazine. And it's made clear now that the devastating earthquake in Turkey has been made much more worse by the corruption of the Erdogan regime, putting his cronies in key positions, enriching his loyalists, hollowing out state institutions, and generally how dictators run things has put Turkey in a position where building codes were not followed, rescues cannot be effectively done, there's no equipment, and the people trained to respond to such emergencies are simply not available. So once again, we see how corruption kills. Not on the scale of the corruption which destroyed the Russian army and its invasion of Ukraine, but pretty similar. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, Dylan Tokar and Andrew Tangel reporting. It's the story of the federal district judge in Texas who denied requests of families killed in the 2 737 MAX Boeing plane crashes to throw out or modify the DPA. The court said that it should have reflected a wider sense of justice, but the court had no ability to overturn a DPA, holding it was a contract between the Justice Department and the Boeing, not subject to court review. This is the latest ruling, which has been a series of reprieves for the Justice Department. Certainly, the DOJ faced criticism over its settlement with Boeing, and the Justice Department had opposed this reopening of the DPA. This will go to the Fifth Circuit, where it's going to be interesting to see what the Fifth Circuit does on this. From Reuters, a article about a sanctions award leveled against Meta and their lawyers, Gibson Dunn, of $925,000, but it wasn't the dollar amount that caught the eye of the reporters and readers. It was excoriating language leveled against the lawyers, Gibson Dunn, for their scorched earth policies, tactics, and strategies, which once again is typical of a U.S. corporation. And our final story today comes to us from Deutsche Bank, which amazingly enough, in its own internal investigation for Forex fraud, and the bank found that the bank had engaged in bad faith for years. So if Deutsche Bank says it's engaged in bad faith, it must really be bad faith, is all I have to say. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.